We have 5 days to complete a bucket list hike that most people do in 10. We have 3 months to train for it. Let's see if we can pull it off.
Brigham's gonna catch a cow.
It's legit snowing right now and it's August.
Welcome to stage 3 of the Hardline Challenge, the elevation test. Like you, we feel like it can be so hard to get out there and do our bucket list hikes, but this year we're changing that. We're gonna set out to do the Uinta Highline Trail, something we've dreamt out for quite a while in half the time that most of the hikers do. To get an idea of what we, the team, had to go through to even get to this stage, make sure to check out the playlist up here, the Hardline Challenge. This stage is about putting everything into practice, loading up our fast packs, fast packing 15 miles at high elevation. At least that's what it was supposed to be. For many of us, this became the most miles we had ever run in our entire lives. Not only that, but a lot of our team had different hardships come up throughout this, including one of our team members who actually rolled their ankle the day before we set out on this trip. So who completed this trail? Who moves on to stage 4? Well, you're just gonna have to find out in this episode of the Hardline Challenge. So one of the best parts about living here in Cedar is the fact that within 45 minutes we can be in the desert or we can be at 11,000 plus feet. And so we took advantage of that for this.
Stage 3 of the Hardline Challenge took place in Brian Head, Utah, which is a local ski resort to us.
We are up here well past 10,000 feet. We're actually at 11,000 feet and we're about to start running. We're gonna log 15 miles at this elevation and see how we fare.
We're trying to do a lot of mimicking what would be coming in the future. So elevation, distance, pack weight.
What kind of mileage could we really do on the trail? And we could use that to plan, distance between water stops or elevation climbing. There's just a lot of other pieces that were gonna really come into play here because, to be honest, none of us had fast packed to this point. And so this was not only the elevation test, but it was really the shakeout test. We asked everyone to pack their bags with all of the gear they'd be using on the trip so that they knew it would fit.
We should have had all of our gear and a full day's food and water, which equated to around 18 pounds.
Hit start on the GPS watch and start logging our miles.
I am up above Brighton Ski Resort up Big Cottonwood Canyon. I went and created my own route on all trails.
He still wanted to be a part of the Hardline Challenge, so he was having to do all of his training and challenges remotely. So basically we would get on all trails and look at elevation and distances and tell him what our training was going to be. And then he would get on all trails and find something similar up in northern Utah.
I'm hiking from Murdoch Peak to Scott Hill and then back. The elevation, especially during the climbs, I could feel it a little bit, but not too bad. I'd say my biggest challenge is trying to keep up a good pace and not stopping to admire this beautiful, beautiful scenery.
We're kind of like along this edge of a plateau. Big alpine meadows, green grass, flowers.
The first half of it was about down, like almost all downhill.
Man, we were a little bit worried about Darren. Up until this point, Darren, he hadn't been using any kind of acceptable running shoes or even hiking shoes. He'd been using whatever trainers he'd been using at the gym. But for stage 3, he actually brought some good shoes. The problem was, at that point, he'd already turned his ankle.
From the second challenge,
So here he is running one of the longest runs of his life, of any of our lives.
I'd be running with the guys and then I'd hit a little pothole and I would just, go down again.
That guy, he rolled his ankle like 6 times that I saw, and I think it was more than that, while running this trail. And so he was having a rough time on this run.
I kept going. It probably wasn't smart to be running on that ankle the day after I finished that second challenge. It's like, but I was able to keep up with the guys.
We have found a spring to filter some water, and we are just taking a rest. I think you can really see it, but this is all super glue right here because at the pool yesterday, hanging out with my girls, I went down a kiddie water slide and it shot me out way faster than I thought. My foot caught the bottom of the pool and it took a big old chunk out of my toe. So far it's held up for the 9 miles. It doesn't feel great, but it's not stopping me or slowing us down.
Here's a check-in at the halfway point. We are at 7.53 miles. Time is 1 hour and 53 minutes. And my heart rate's sitting at about 162. I feel really, really good.
So the Brian Head elevation test was just it was supposed to be a half day, turned into a little bit longer than half of a day. The morning started off great. We were mainly running flats and downhills, and so it was like, yeah, this is great. We could do 30 miles of this, no problem. And then it wasn't, I feel like, until we stopped, got to the end water source.
The place where we thought there was going to be water to filter, there was no water to filter.
Turned out that it was more of a mud hole.
So the only option was to either just start running back or run farther than we planned until we basically just met up with this stream. We ended up running like another 1.5 miles or 2 farther out than we had planned, and we also had to drop down like 1,000 or 1,200 feet of elevation. Took like a 20-minute filter and snack break, and then we had to climb up out of that canyon.
Coming back, it got really hot and it was all uphill. I think when you're this high and you're just this much more exposed, the heat hits you easier. So that's the thing I've noticed the most with elevation.
My feet have felt great today. Usually I've had that one foot falling asleep, but they're doing well. 14 miles in, that's a pretty good sign.
I'm enjoying this challenge. I'm enjoying having a goal and a reason to get out and train consistently, because when we're getting out here, we're doing good, and I feel really accomplished with it. This is an amazing Tuesday at the office for our team, and so it doesn't get much better than that. I haven't had something this motivating in a while, and I also haven't done this many big days in a long time. We're up here right at tree line, and it's just awesome feeling like you're on top of the world and feeling like you're building your health and taking a break from the busyness of the day-to-day.
I mean, maybe when we're hiking uphill, you know, we might get a little short-winded, but I think that we've all handled it pretty well.
It's just giving me extra motivation to keep up my fitness and take care of myself, so I feel just good. You know, when you let your fitness slip, you start feeling tired all the time. You just feel kind of crappy. So having all this motivation and these reasons to keep moving is kind of a big deal.
As we were running on the trail, about halfway through on the way out, we saw this group of campers. We passed them as we ran by their camp, and we didn't really say much, and they kind of just looked at us funny, you know. It was kind of like, all right, how are you guys? We're just gonna run through your camp real fast. But when we're coming out, after we'd gone the 9.5 miles or so, whatever it was, and then turned around to come back, we had to pass through their camp again, and this time we stopped, and they stopped us and they wanted to know, what the heck are you guys doing? They'd never seen people just running around with fully loaded backpacks before, and we kind of explained what we were doing, and they're like, oh man, you guys are insane. And that was kind of a funny experience. I think one of the guys, he mentioned how he was kind of humbled, one of these campers. He's like, oh man, I thought I was really cool doing these, you know, big hikes, doing, you know, however many miles in a day walking, and then you guys come running through and it makes me feel like crap. And so we kind of laughed at that.
By the end of the day, everyone had different things going on. Some people, I think, were just running out of gas. Brigham kind of hit a calorie wall. I feel like Derek, whether it was hydration or calories, felt that at some point when we were going up some of the hills. For me, I was cramping.
All right, so this stage has been absolutely the best stage to shed light on reality. With what turned into be about 20 miles, I started to hit this wall. First, my right quad started to cramp, slowed down, drank, started moving. Next time we ran, my left quad started to cramp, and then kind of that went away, and then it was my inner thigh. And essentially just really shed light on my hydration and how I got behind there just so quick.
I know Tayson and Brigham both kind of hit energy walls where they just realized they hadn't eaten enough. Derek had a headache from probably not getting enough water. I was starting to definitely feel the elevation, and Darren had a sprained ankle from rolling his ankle. So we were all like working through different challenges, and by the end we did right around 18 miles.
Total time was 4 hours and 1 minute, 15.2 miles and change. I think the hardest thing for me was probably just the pack weight on my shoulders. I did experience some chafing. I think that's just because I'm not used to more trail running and running with the pack. Thought that it was gonna be a little bit harder than it was at elevation.
We thought that the elevation would be the hard part about this challenge, and in reality, it was just the running and the expenditure and the length of the miles and stuff like that, I think hit us harder than the elevation. The last section was pretty interesting. I feel like that's when we were all kind of hitting our walls at different intervals.
Like I just instantly felt like, whoa, I have no energy, like no fuel. And so I got like a thing of gummies, like gummy energy chews, like a little package from Tayson, and I like ate 3 of those.
I think everyone's training, was up to par. Everyone's, was right where they need to be physically. I just think it was the additional things, such as like additional electrolytes, making sure you're eating throughout the day. Those are the important things that we didn't really pay attention to.
All right, we just got back to the vehicles.
I think all of us were super excited, and you get that thing going where you're like, oh man, I can't wait for some more food, or we knew we had Gatorades and stuff at the truck. And it was kind of funny, it's kind of comical, because we got there and we're all amped up for food, and then we all looked at it and we're like, I don't think I can eat that right now. Like, I don't feel that hungry. And so we actually went and we were having a meeting about some other stuff. We just brought some lawn chairs and went over to a shaded area, and we're having a meeting. We had all this like food ready for us. I don't think anyone touched it.
That one really was like a good proving ground for us. It was a good test.
Running up and down in the mountains was much different than the hour I'd been running in the morning every day. And so I found that I had a lot more training to do to get ready for stage 4.
I felt a little bit underprepared. I knew that I needed to change up my training and change it up fast, but there wasn't that much time to do so. I mean, we're talking about like a couple weeks. So I started geeking out a lot on, things like calorie intake and water, and just how quickly I'm bringing those in. I think that was a big takeaway for me, is trying to figure out kind of the input of electrolytes for water and just balancing some of that stuff.
We're gonna have some rules and regulations of like hydration as we go into this, just to try to keep everyone on board. You're only kind of as weak as your weakest member.
So after having finished Brian Head, I was looking at Beaver and thinking, wow, we're gonna have 8 to 10 more miles in the first day than that day.
This was freaking awesome. Like, I am stoked about it. I had a ton of fun today, even though it was brutal. 17 and a half, almost 18 miles, I think was what was logged on the watches, on the Garmin's, and overall though, it was just freaking awesome. Had a great time and learned a ton. It's gonna help us take us into the next stage. So make sure you stay tuned, because the next video should be the Beaver Fast Pack, or in other words, the Skyline Trail. That is stage 4 of the Hardline Challenge, and we are gonna be kicking our butts, busting out nearly around 26 mile days while trying to run and fast pack. It's gonna be super awesome. We're gonna get a lot of wear and tear on us. That's also gonna build straight into the Highline, where we're gonna be hiking, but for 20 miles a day for 5 days straight at massive elevation. So it's all really, really awesome stuff. Make sure to stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next stage of the Hardline Challenge.
Struggling with some pretty bad knee pain on my left side, but other than that, we're golden.
I think I just realized I did forget my spoon.
My stomach just keeps churning, so nothing sounds good.
Good to know that we've done over a half marathon so far, with another one that we're working on.